Hey everybody, it's continued fun here at the Red Barn with the Ferrari Swap 914. In the last episode, we used our fixture table here to great effect to get most of the exhaust stuff figured out. And in this episode, it's all about final welding and wrapping up this exhaust. Hope you enjoy. Okay, this is going to look a bunch better once this rail system is out of the car, but here you can see I got the connector tab, or the connector pieces tacked on to the 90s on both sides, and these are tacked here and here. These are free floating right now. You can see these are just ready to be tacked on. Whoop, this one's a little tight, but there you go, right? So these just click right up into place and fit really well, and it looks super cool from under here. Maybe not coming through on the video, but this whole whoop up and back is super cool looking. So these are ready for final welding. They'll come out and get final welded, and then we will go to work on a 45 coming out of here, kicking back and tying in to the rear of the tube. And then I decided that I think the best idea for overall support of the system is, we already know we're gonna have the rear bracket, but then I just whipped up this quick little, playing with design still, but this bracket will bolt to the trans case, as you can see, and it'll step down right between the middle of the X, and we're gonna add a little web between those two pipes on the X and have a pickup point, a little tab that this can pick up. So the muffler will be supported, and this will be welded to the front of the X. This V-band clamp is very mechanically strong, and that support back there. So the muffler will be supported between there and there, completely locked into the transaxle. And then it's really just the front part of the X pipe that's going to be floating up to the slip joint. And we may add some tabs there, but at the very least it'll get some spring clamps. I think it's probably the spring clamps. I think I like that idea better. I think it'd look better, a little bit more race. And then this exhaust will be done. Oh, but on this side, things are slightly different, obviously, because, completely different shape of the transaxle. So the bracket, or the tab hanger that's going to have to come down into here and support this side of the X pipe may have to tie onto either these bosses and come down, just a bladed kind of a support bracket to clear the shifter cables. Or there's an outside chance there are two fasteners on the underside of this linkage bracket that may work. So this is still TBD, and obviously it'll still need a bracket on this side. So we'll figure that out, and then the exhaust system will be done. And rather than bore you with the details, I'll just point out, you've heard me say stuff about, well, I had to go back and trim this 4 or 5 times. I won't spend much time on this, but this gives you an idea of the sneak up on the distances ahead. This is ahead of filing, but I think this is my world record is, band sawing off, what is that, 1/16 and a half kind of a thing? 3/30 seconds? I don't know, not a lot. And so just the remnants of what it takes to, at least for me, to get these tubes fitted. So there you go. All right, we're going to final weld the turn downs, or the 90s, onto the connectors to the X pipe. And here we want the inside of the weld to be super nice too. So we're running the secondary line from the shielding gas into a leaking plug, if you want to call it that, so there's flow. And then just taped up the other end. So as the final weld goes, we've got shielding gas on the outside, there's shielding gas on the inside, and you don't get this. Let me see that one for a second. I don't know if you can see it, but it's hard to see, but you get oxidation because it's unshielded as it goes molten on the inside of the weld. And so we don't want to have to get back in here and grind it. It's a much better way to do it, like we did on the headers. It's all back purged. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to work off camera. I'm going to work the valve that turns this gas on and off, and Martin's going to go ahead and start welding. So good. And we'll be back to show you the result after it's all done, because you don't want to watch this. All right, and it's going to be almost impossible to see because no lighting down in there, but what you've got are shielded welds that look virtually the same on the inside as they do on the outside. So back-purging, absolutely the way to go on this kind of thing. All right, so 90 connector tack to X pipe on one side. So now it's going to be trying to work around all of this whilst, and this is the final chance to locate everything, right? The mufflers are now being forced into the position they're going to live in and all that good stuff. So Martin is continuing to tack while I am sort of preparing ahead for this side. Okay, I think this feels pretty good. All right, and there's both sides of the 90 connector to the X, and now you can see everything moves as a unit. So now go to work on tying the back of the X up to the headers. All right, now we're going to go to work on the connector pipe from the header to the X. And the way this works is we took this piece of MDF, and I was under the car holding it up against the header and up against the X. And Martin marked where the header ended and where the X ended or started. And then we drew some 2.5 inch wide lines, used the fixture blocks to make up a guide, if you want to call it that, or just another part of the fixture. And then it was a game of taking our 245s, and you know, these started off as much longer and all that good stuff. And this is just the process of chasing down, you know, leave the cuts like a 1/4 inch long at first, and then modeling this up against the template, the jig, if you want to call it. Yeah. And so I don't know if I can do a great job of doing this, but you can see what we end up doing, and this located everything.
Now notice that this is flat, but their timing marks are not flat.
We use this piece of ABS, which is exactly the right size to slide inside these tubes. So these were able to be pretty stiffly held together.
So we had this.
Like Trust us, it fits. But what that allowed us to do is get this square against the header, while this was being held square against the X. And what you can see here is, I think, pardon the shiny.
We did that.
This is how much out of plane that twist accounts for the difference in the angle of the end of the X to the end of the header.
Because this is lower than this.
Yep, because we're changing elevation. So anyway, now that we have all this figured out, we're almost done trimming it, but we're going to commit to this twist. And so we're just going to go ahead. And now, with the timing marks aligned, just use a piece of angle iron, and that gets these things completely centered every time, 100% of the time. And now we're just going to tack this together and go back in and verify fit. It was a great fit, and now it's fully weld this up, get all the shrinkage taken care of before we do the final trimming on the one end that's still a teeny bit too long. And so obviously the back purge line is in there and the gas is flowing, so we're getting complete weld protection on the inside of the tube as well. It's true. This exhaust has brought Martin to his knees. But check it out. So rather than take you through what it takes to make the other pipe, it's exactly the same thing, only backwards. So there's kind of what it's going to look like. And it really looks very, very cool. So Martin's going to get under there now, and the only thing we have to do is tack. These are all fully welded now. Everything's welded. The slip joint's welded. The intermediate straights are welded. And this is now going to get tacked in place. And then we'll be able to pull the entire system out to back purge the whole thing so we can final weld those joints. And then it'll be done. Oh my God, check this out. All right, so you saw it all artsy-fartsied, and now the hard part starts. Now we got to final weld this joint, and you can see what's going on here. Any shrinkage that happens there is going to affect where this thing goes, and these have to be exactly where the headers are. So now what we've done is we've just we've forced this out a teeny bit, and Martin's going to start welding, and you can see this is barely in here. And so he's welding on the part of the system that's going to cause this to move this way. All right, and so we've also taken measurements of what this was before, you know, right when we pulled it out of the car, so we know what our target measurement is between these two slip joints. And now it's just a matter of trying to weld slowly and check, and weld slowly and check. And at some point we're probably going to have to start putting some real force on these to spread them, so that as they start moving, we know that we can get them to go where we want. All right, so that was more tacks done to start to make sure that we understand how things are going to move. I had a quick test of it, and as you saw, it slid right back in the way it was supposed to. So far, so good. Okay, final welding is all done. Now the acid test of how did we do. All right, major milestone. Big thanks to Martin. Everybody say thanks to Martin. Thanks, Martin! But for the very first time, now you've seen this, you know, you've seen things set in there, you've seen things held in place, you've seen things tacked, but this is a fully operational, fully welded, under the transaxle X pipe, all 304 stainless, slip fitted in the front, bolted in the back.
Do you feel how rigid that is? Without a mount?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not really going anywhere. So there's a question that's coming up right now about, do we even need a bracket there? Because I think we do. It's because it's this bolted to this, and really it's the slip fits. This thing doesn't want to go anywhere, but I think when the car is going, I think we want to tie it down. But I couldn't be happier that those slip fits pushed right on. I'm able to put the whole exhaust system together by myself, which is a goal. I don't want to have somebody here to help, although it's great having people here. You know, having buddies in the shop is always great, but being able to disassemble, service, whatever we need to do to the car by myself is always better. So there it is. Again, big thanks to Martin. Couldn't have done it without him, as with many things on this project. But now, time to get on to other new stuff, and the focus from here on out is to make the engine run. So, wish me luck, I'm going in. All right, so as one last thing, I decided I had to see what this thing looked like on the ground. And a couple of really cool things. The angle of the mufflers is pointing uphill as they exit the car, which I think is really cool looking. We'll probably have to, you know, not like it's gonna get driven in the rain, but we might have to do a vertical cut on those exhaust tips. And this thing looks all business. It really, really looks great. You know, you got to kind of remember that, you know, don't forget the cool headers. I mean, you can't see them because they're down there in the dark, but...
Did it upstage your headers?
Yeah, I think it did. I think it upstaged the headers. So, one thing to note is, as we were talking about how this turned out, Martin reminded me, not that he needed to, but it was his idea to force me to think about putting the exhaust, or put the X pipe under the transaxle, and here I was worried that's like, oh, that's not going to ever fit, it's going to be too low. And well, it turns out we were just, part of the reason we put the car on the ground is the X pipe is not the lowest part of what's going on. It's the front of the engine cradle. So
well, remember though, credit to you, you have to demolish a lot of your work. Remember?
Martin knows me better than to have to say that demolishing my work and doing stuff over again is really a problem for me. So yeah,
there was a lot of the struts got changed, the backwards frame got changed, all that stuff. That was hard to give up because I know you had hours into that.
Yep. So yeah, fair point. But this is way better, and we haven't solved for the struts to support that rear pivoting link, and what that looks like it's going to need is a skid plate of some sort, or a plate system underneath the entire drivetrain, which I kind of wanted anyway, and then a support system at the back to keep it going fore and aft so the pivoting link is supported correctly. But again, giant thanks to Martin. Couldn't do it without him. And that is going to do it for this episode. That is going to do it for the exhaust system. And again, greatly appreciate you guys watching. Please comment, like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff if you would. I'd greatly appreciate that too. And we'll see y'all again real soon. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.